Sorry. Perkins & Will is a terrific office, and many of you will want to know about this office because very likely you'll be applying for jobs in a couple of years. And Perkins & Will do hire a lot of our students. We have a lot of terrific former students there. So the lecture tonight is by Yanel and Carolyn Cooney, who's marketing director firm-wide, so through all of the offices at Perkins & Will. And she's also an associate principal there. So tonight's lecture is entitled Engaging Leadership, Finding Your Unique Voice. Right? This is an important lecture, and the workshop will be important. I hope you will see this because leadership is something that doesn't come naturally, but it is something you can learn and you can interact with, and it's important even in studios, but certainly it'll be important. It's important in school. It's important afterwards for work. Yanel received a bachelor's BEd from University of Puerto Rico. She went to school here. She got a master's, a professional degree in MArch here at our school. Yes. She did an MDes at the GSD at Harvard with a specialization in history and theory. And she taught here. She taught in the Florence program, but she's also taught at the Maryland Institute of College of Art. She's taught at Harvard, and she's also taught at Northeastern University. And in 2020, she was elevated to the AIA College of Fellows, which is the highest kind of honor bestowed upon AIA members. Carolyn Cooney, as I said, is the marketing director and associate principal at Perkins & Will. She received a BA from University of Massachusetts, Boston. And she began her career working on the client side in a major building project. Maybe she'll tell us what that was. An experience which she credits with her ability to understand what clients really want and what they need and why. So, really, really happy to have Yanel and Carolyn here. And looking forward to their lecture. I'm looking forward to learning something about leadership tonight as well. Maybe I should attend the workshop tomorrow. We're going to do an interview with them as well. And the last thing I will ask you to do is to help me to welcome back to Syracuse architecture Yanel and Carolyn. So take it away. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Am I on? You can hear me? Awesome. It's great to be home. I graduated in '99 and continue to be involved with the school. I'm now in the advisory board, which I love.
To say that she's a member of my advisory board. I'm in big trouble now. Sorry. She's my boss.
Not really.
So I made a mistake. Thank you for joining our advisory board this year. Sorry.
I'm thrilled to be here, and you will see maybe tonight's lecture might be different from other lectures that you have come to see, and really my honor to be in partnership with Caroline, because when you're running a business, this is the perspective that you need. You need an insider that can tell you, what is at the other side, because ultimately you're, putting yourself out there trying to get these commissions. So as we were getting ready for today, we wondered, how much about leadership did we learn back when we were in college? And I will be totally honest, I took professional practice. That's still a course, right? I assume everyone will take it at some point. It was painfully at 7:30 a.m. and my brain wasn't awake. And what I remember was contracts, and a little bit about the role of the architect in society. I always felt that the class was not inspirational and was missing something. And now in retrospect, what I think it was missing is this concept of leadership, which has been instrumental in my career, and I have learned is actually critical for everyone as we go through even our personal lives. So today, we will be exploring this concept of what is leadership. And I like to do a show of hands since you don't have a mic, so we'll try to make it interactive that way. Raise your hand if you consider yourself to be a leader. Okay, and now humor me and everyone raise your hand. Come on. So leadership is learned, is a skill, but it's also, we already are leaders in different perspectives, different ways. And you know, sometimes you're leading so small that you think you are not leading anyone, but you are. And I think that's something we want to explore today as well. I think that a very important attribute of a leader is the ability to inspire. And to me, that really means that ability to see through the forest, crystallize that vision, and bring everyone along in that vision. So everyone is as excited, you know, as that vision and dream might be. And in our studio, we talk about leadership quite often. Particularly once a year, we have a strategic meeting about what are we doing that year? What are our priorities and so forth? And we usually have a guest speaker. And this year, we had Lieutenant General John Whistler. He's retired from the Marine Corps. And he was just like hands down, to me, totally resonated. So we would like to share with you a snippet of what he shared with us about competence, courage, and compassion. So let's hear him out, and then we'll continue. Hopefully the sound works.
General Lejeune, a famous Marine, 13th Commandant, World War I hero, served through World War II, just an amazing guy. He defined leadership this way, and I would offer this as a great definition of leadership for you. He said, leadership is the sum of those qualities of intellect, human understanding, and moral character that enables a person to inspire and control a group of people successfully. The reason I love that definition is because General Lejeune didn't jump straight to the control, which is where most people think leadership is, right? It's how do you control the people? He said it's about inspiration. And I will make this even easier for you to remember, right? It's about competence, compassion, and courage to inspire. Competence is that intellect piece. Compassion is that human understanding piece. And courage is the moral character piece. Moral character being those acts daily that build that sort of muscle movement that allow you to be courageous, to hold yourself accountable, to do what's right, not what's easy. I mean, that's what the courage is about. Compassion for yourself, for others, for the people that lead you, for the client, for what they want to do. And certainly the competence piece is getting ahead of technology, understanding where you need to be. And I'll talk a little bit about how you implement that a little bit later. Eugene Bell Jr. said this. I've talked to you about inspiration. It's all those things about inspiring, not simply controlling, right? Inspiration, if you can inspire the people you lead, the only control is to hold them inside the right and left lateral limits of what you want them to do, and maybe rein them back every once in a while if they get too far out over their skis. But Eugene Bell Jr. said this. He said, aspire to inspire before you expire, right? Why do I say that? I say that because many people, and it happens for young officers as well, midshipmen, whoever thinks they're going to be in a leadership profession, they think, I'll wait to get to that leadership stuff until they put me in a position of leadership. Nothing could be further from the truth. That idea of peer, you need to be a leader today. When you came to the firm, you needed to be a leader. When you came to the studio, you needed to be a leader. You can't automatically pick up a book, whack yourself in the head, and say, oh, by the way, I'm now a leader, right? You need to build that skill set, just like you build your professional skill set over time. So I would offer, take on Eugene Bell Jr.'s idea of aspire to inspire before you expire.
So to me, that was really a great summary of leadership. And I think oftentimes we try to summarize that in a very two-dimensional way, and it's really a three-dimensional, it has depth. We will be talking about the 360 leadership. And I think in that three-dimensionality, we can all find our unique voice, and lead from where we are. So courage, compassion, competence, and I think, that idea of being able to bring people through, really critical for the person that is inspiring and leading. So then when we talk about the qualities of a leader, there are 4 that I think really resonate. Self-awareness. You know what you're made of, what you can do. Self-awareness also means humility, and to know when you made a mistake, you can admit it and you can pivot. I think that is something that I have learned coming into the managing director role. My predecessor said, you're going to make mistakes. Just be ready to pivot. Don't dwell on it. Excuse yourself. We're all make mistakes, and we want to explore. So if you're willing to risk things and take risk, you will make mistakes, and that's just a natural thing. The strategic component, I think at the end of the day, you need not just to have a vision, but how does it come together? What are the key components to make that a realization? And then ethical. General Whistler talked about competence, and to me, is keeping myself real every day, keeping that ethical spine. Am I doing the right thing? Am I being fair? Especially when I have to adjust salaries and move people along the lines of promotions and all of that. Am I being fair? And then this concept of cross-cultural communication. And I don't mean it by just, I'm from this country and that's my culture. I mean it from understanding the context in which you sit and have the empathy to understand where the others are sitting. Because my reality is certainly not the reality of others. And that arguably it's kind of the communication part is the platform in which everything else sits. So from there, I often think about how am I coming across? Like even right now, are you getting me? Are you interested? I want to know because I want to know how my audience perceives me. So let's do a quick exercise, and this is where the sound can be brought up. It won't work. This is good. You get it. Torrential rain. And torrential rain, for me, I am originally from Puerto Rico. I come from the Caribbean. Torrential rain, and it silences everything. It really is numbing. It silences everything, and to me, it's very calming. In fact, my memory of torrential rain is joy, because I will ask my mom, can I get out of the house and play in the rain just like this little girl? And that to me was freedom. It was liberating. It was being in contact with nature. But I often wonder if we're doing a projection like this of torrential rain, is that really true for everyone? Does it bring joy to everyone? So I asked Caroline, what does torrential rain means or feels like to you? And she said,
Yanel, when we were talking about it, I said, it's funny because I know that is a joyful memory, but for me it actually brings up a painful memory from when I was a kid and a family member got ill and we weren't able to get there because of a rainstorm. We were washed out, and I just remember that rain and just the sort of the pain my mom was going through, and it was a very different but visceral reaction. And I think it's understanding that you can tailor the message.
And we just ran audio. There was nothing to it. But the point is, whatever the delivery is, always be thinking, how am I being perceived by my audience? In this case today is all of you, but when we have high stakes going after big projects, I really care about what they feel and what they think while I'm presenting and pitching the idea, because I want to be, winning that commission so we can design an awesome building. So another aspect that I think is important is this idea of the role that the leader might have. So summary, visionary, you heard that, strategic, you heard that, but advocacy. And I often think that one of the components of advocacy is bringing people along. And in bringing people along, you not only do that when they are in the room, you do that also when they are not in the room. You become their sponsor. And if you're not growing your people with you, what's the point, right? So I think that's a key component as well. As we were getting ready for today, we thought about the idea of making a daily deposit to your leadership bank. And there are so many layers to this, and we have touched on some of them. So prioritizing character, like checking with yourself, right? Am I leading from that? Am I being exemplary when I'm leading? Because people are watching, and even if you're not talking, they are watching. Are you putting we before I? I mean, that is daily thing where I have to put my own needs aside to, be able to be present for my team. And, holding yourself accountable through all of that. Obviously, respect for others, perseverance. You have to have a lot of patience with yourself and others. And this took me a while, but being self-reflective and carving out time to really take a pause and reflect on what I'm doing now, being present in the moment, or where am I going, or how am I going to deliver this news, if it's in the context of the studio. And today I deliver a lot of good news because we did leadership promotions. We will show you a video of one of them.
So we've been talking a little bit about what leadership means at the individual level. I'm being told to hold this closer to my mouth. And I think that is really important, but let's talk a little bit too about how leadership impacts team dynamics. And so we'll do another show of hands. Have you ever been placed in a position of leadership by someone? Have you had that in your career where someone has assigned you a leader? You have, so we have
It happens.
some of you. That's great. Okay, excellent. See, we knew you were all leaders. Have you ever found yourself in a leadership position because you carved your way into it, because you had to sort of work your way there?
Earn it.
Earn it. Excellent. I knew this was going to be good, and I love seeing the mix of this, because I think that of these two leadership positions, you're going to encounter both of them a lot in your career. And I think one thing that Yanel and I have always bonded on and been aligned with as long as we've worked together is this concept of leadership being earned. I think a lot of us will be put in positions where we're nominated, we're appointed to leader positions, but even when you find yourself there, it's still something that you have to work for, you have to earn to either achieve or maintain once you're there. And one of my roles is not just in marketing, but one thing that I've developed over the course of my career is one of my sort of chief goals and responsibilities is to help develop architects into leaders. And one thing that I look for when we're trying to identify those leaders and how to help them get to the next step is honestly those people who are just having fun, people who really enjoy what they're doing on a daily basis, much like Yanel, tend to attract people, tend to naturally find themselves in leadership positions because people are attracted to that. They tend to innately trust what that is. And so when you think about this concept of how you can sort of earn leadership and earn the sort of the respect and of your peers and your colleagues, there's sort of two different ways of getting back to these leadership models. I think that the traditional leadership model is sort of one person telling everyone else what they need to do. And I think that's kind of falling away at the moment because that's really based on a management model. It's about here's the work that we need to get done and assigning tasks. And one thing, it wasn't in General Whistler's clip that we played, but one thing he did talk about that resonated with me is people don't want to be managed. They want to be led, right? They want to be inspired. And in this model, it doesn't really matter if you're inspired because you just have to do the job. So I think what more organizations are finding, especially Perkins and Will with leaders like Yanel, is it really is this...
And you.
It is this 360 model, that this hierarchical form of leadership is really going away because that's not how you get creativity. That's not how you get the best out of people. So what do we mean by 360? There's sort of the lateral. It starts with yourself, having the sort of control over yourself, having the confidence in yourself, and then being able to lead the peers around you, those people that you're going to be working with side by side in your career. There is the up and down sort of element to this. And I think that even as you will still have directors and bosses, and I apologize, my throat is so dry.
I lead my boss every day. That's the CEO. I have bi-weekly check-ins. And I tell him what to do.
Well, and I think what you'll find is it sort of is a virtuous cycle, right? As you find yourself leading and directing people, real leaders are inspired by that interaction. It's not just a one-way situation. And so you might learn a lot and be inspired by your boss, your leader, but they're also going to be inspired by you. They're going to learn from you. And I think the more that we start looking at that way of learning, of mentoring, we're going to create organizations and teams that are just more dynamic and more creative. So at the heart of this is trust. I think if you can think about people in your life that you trust, whether it's a friend, a family, one of your fellow students, someone that you really trust says to you, I've got a crazy idea. I want you to do this with me. Let's just go try it. You're much more likely to go along and explore something and take a risk and try something new. And that's why I think at the heart of all of this, of the leadership, is being able to earn that trust. So Yanel mentioned that we just had leadership announcements, promotion announcements in our firm. And we're going to play a little snippet from someone who just became an associate principal. And he's going to talk a little bit about this concept of 360 leadership and how that's helped him get where he is. And it's something that has been recognized and valued.
He just received the news today.
As a team leader, it's important to structure the team and put individuals in areas where they can excel, but also stretch them to their true capabilities and where they can really deliver on great projects. In the health group, we've created a mentor-based culture with a team excited about growth for the future. My influence also extends beyond the Boston studio, where my can-do attitude and experience help shape projects across multiple studios. In my time here, team spirit and collaboration is the thread that has woven itself through the work I have done. Yes, I've worked in the healthcare studio, but I've also partnered with K-12, higher education, and multiple other studios to bring wellness to all the projects and really elevate what it means to create healthy buildings. In my time here, beyond Boston, I've got to partner with many offices and studios, including New York, Washington, Chicago, Seattle, and even Shanghai. And it's in these partnerships on projects and pursuits that I've met wonderful people and really helped grow who I am as a leader.
So this is the kind of leadership quality that we're looking for at Perkins & Will, and that I think a lot of creative firms are looking for even outside of architecture. And we wanted to share it with you just because this is sort of the face of the new leadership. And because Jeff has spent his career really focused on mentorship, on up-down mentorship, side to side, he's being recognized, and not only has his influence been felt in Boston, but it's been felt nationally and globally, and has allowed him to really grow. And because his approach, I think, engenders a lot of trust with people that he works with, I wanted to talk about trust. I know the graphic leaves something to be desired, but I just thought I'd go for simplicity.
It's very clear to me, though.
Okay, all right. So thinking about trust in sort of three different ways. When I'm talking about logic, it's the clarity of your idea, the soundness of your idea, sort of the proof of concept. Is what you're doing sort of sound? Is there a logic to it that people can follow? Authenticity, I think, can oftentimes be overlooked, but it's so critical because we are so much more likely to trust and feel comfortable with someone who has the courage to be vulnerable and to be open. It allows us to feel more open and safe with that person. Closer. And then empathy, lastly, I think being able to put yourself in the shoes of someone else, think about how something will be perceived from their perspective, and act accordingly. So I was trying to think of examples to share that I thought really illustrated this. And I thought I would share the story. If you don't know her, Patricia Moore She is often referred to as the mother of universal design, and I just found out Syracuse actually gave her an honorary doctorate for her work around universal design. So she was a product designer in the 70s, and she went to work for some sort of big name company that worked with Coca-Cola and Shell, and they did product design, and she started asking questions about different products, right? Take a can opener. She was like, how does someone with arthritis use this? Designing a refrigerator, how does someone who's elderly and doesn't have strength, how are they going to open this door? And people kept repeatedly telling her, you don't have to worry about that. That's not who we designed for. We're just designing for this very narrow group of people. And so she had a real problem with that. And she decided to spend 3 years going across North America dressed like this. And she went into different cities, and she had like prosthetics, and she wore different clothes, and she walked up and down stairs. She tried opening department store doors, trying out different products just to see how a broader set of people could use this. So she might have focused on the elderly population, but what has always struck me about her approach to design was, and if you have ever used an OXO potato peeler or the OXO can openers, that's all her. But she really put her empathy at the forefront of what she did. Her hypothesis had a logic to it, it was very sound, and she was so authentic in her passion of trying to be more inclusive in how our everyday products were designed, to the point that eventually her passion and her advocacy led to the adoption and legislation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So I just leave that story with you as an example of, I think, what this model of 360 authentic leadership style, really trying to just get the trust of people around you. Because I think with design impacting the world, not just design, but empathy and what it can do.
On my back? Can you hear? Okay,
Yeah.
good. This concept of empathy can also be described as emotional intelligence, and it's really critical for reading those that are around you. So shifting gears or evolving this concept of leadership, many people might think about a career as a ladder that you have to climb, and I like to kind of debunk that in a way, because there is much more to just this drive to get to the next thing. Because if you're hollow, you can keep climbing, but there's no substance there. And breaking news, people know. People read right through it. And I think I have seen it played out, and I think it's important to understand that a title might not be the solution. Sometimes you don't even have the title, but you have the power to lead, even more so from where you're standing. So let's do another show of hands and then get into this career concept. So how many of you understand the trajectory of a typical career? Raise your hand. It's like, yeah, I get it, typical career, kind of have it mapped out. Okay, cool. Kind of, sort of. Show of hands, sort of. Okay, I have no idea. That's okay. I actually don't think I have all the answers either. So thinking about that typical career, and I'm saying typical because this is my perspective, what I'm going to share with you right now, and I'm sure there are many other perspectives. So through my career, I have always been thinking about what is this evolution and what makes sense. And I have observed, not only in architecture, but in other industries, because our clients are in other industries, I have perceived that there is a progression that maybe this map kind of captures it. So early years, say right after college, is about setting your foundation, developing yourself. And to me, this is a very selfish period, but importantly selfish. You're right out of school. If you're going into an architectural firm, you're learning the business, you're honing your skills, learning new programs, finding what is your role in that team structure and what do I bring to this team to make this design awesome. That takes time. You're finding yourself. And I will say the first 2 years are like someone threw a cold bucket of water on you and can be a bit, shocking. And then you start to get into the groove, you kind of get it. And I think at some point in there, you kind of transition this threshold into what I will call an expanding expertise. And you are more in a position to develop others. So you're not so centered anymore. You can look around and say, I know a few things I can teach people around me. And I will share with you a story to kind of exemplify this. When I was early in my career, I actually had the opportunity to go into interviews. And I felt sometimes inadequate. I think people call it now the imposter syndrome. But the principal in charge of the project will help me out and say, you have these 3 slides, and you're going to talk about this, and these are the talking points. And I didn't have a lot of experience, but I wanted to do a good job, so I memorized the talking points, and I deliver with conviction, and I was thinking inside my head, oh, please don't ask me any questions about this, because I don't know if I can answer. And then when I went into this threshold of the expanding expertise, I said, I kind of know a few things, so if you ask me, I'm okay, and the bullet points I don't need to memorize. I actually have done this, and I can tell you about it. And I think, after that, and I'm not there yet, I'm old, but not that old, becoming the sage. And I think at that point, you're really positioning others to lead. Not that you have not done that before, but here you are like, you're about to retire, you're at the other side, you have perspective, you have seen so much. And when someone like me goes to my predecessor, who will likely retire in 2 years, and was in this position for 10 years, and I go, oh my God, chill out. This is like my 3rd or 4th recession. It's gonna be okay. It's the cycle of the industry. And you're like, okay, so we don't need to lay anyone off. No, you're gonna be okay. Write it off. It's gonna be fine. I think, of those people, and I have to say a cross-generational studio is completely important because career is about apprenticeship. And someone told me once, if you want to move on, train whoever is going to take over, because if you're not training, you cannot move on because you're attached to that needs a job that needs to be done. And then I will leave you with this, which has been, in the way we talk about mentorship and kind of moving along, an idea that was shared by a colleague of ours from the New York studio. She often thought about mentorship as see one, do one, lead one. And she will take her team through that process. Well, now you're just observing this, planning and strategies project, and then the next one you're doing it. You're cranking out the data, you're there, you're designing. And then the next time around, that 3rd client, you have seen the whole thing, you can lead it now. And I think that notion of mentorship rings through the entire ladder.
And I think that I love the concept of the see, do, and then lead, because you're going to have moments like that throughout your career as you're working on projects and going through different projects. There'll be different moments where you can pause and lead throughout. Typically, you'll start out in the life cycle of a project, and it'll come to you in a variety of different ways, but I think we'll just start and look at what is just that project line, right? What's that project process. Once you win a project, you move on to design, you're documenting, constructing and overseeing construction, and then closing it out. And through that, you'll find as you advance on each new project that you're moving through those steps in the apprenticeship that Yanel described.
And I wish they showed me this at that professional practice class. So this is a map that we developed. I was part of the project delivery council for the firm, and we mapped this out for ourselves to be critical and really push us forward. So let's call this kind of the status quo. It's not really necessarily how we think or operate, but you win that project. Hooray, we won, let's celebrate. And then you start the contracts, which, yes, that was an important part of ProPrac. You think about who is your team, how are we going to plan this project, and all of those things. And then you move to that other stage. I mean, design is our business. I didn't go to architecture school to do contracts and do all of that stuff. I want to design. I want to be in it. But, you know, being in the business requires you to do all of this other stuff. And that's really important as well. So you are designing, you're managing the team, you're collaborating, wonderful, and you're designing really what matters. And then we move on to documentation, and you just want to document what's valuable. You have limited time and resources, and all through this line, I'm thinking, where do I fit in? Where can I lead? Where do I bring value? Where can my voice be, you know, is needed and perhaps is absent, and I can bring something to the table? And we often thought about it as a line, but we want to challenge that.
So one of my roles in sort of supporting the business and helping to shape the direction of the business is I have to recognize that each project is part of a larger business continuum, right? Once we have finished that project, we need to make sure we're positioned to win the next one so we can keep our teams happily creating amazing designs and building beautiful buildings. And so what do you do after that? You will learn to iterate and advance in the technical skills of the project itself. But another step of leadership starts to come into building the business. So once a project's done, you want to photograph it, you want to promote it, you want to try and get it placed in magazines, get some press around it. You or your project team might bring the show to conferences and present it with your client. You're at these conferences and you're networking, you're meeting people, talking to people who are interested in your project, the lessons that you learned, they want to know more about it. And so once you're here, whether you're presenting or attending or just sort of being aware of how to promote this project, you start to build a network. And from that network, and you're building the relationships, you're going to start to hear about projects. Now you're going to start to be part of the cycle of identifying the next tranche of projects that are going to start coming up. Someone has a library plan for a few years down the road. Someone needs their office renovated. And this is where I think another sort of apprentice level, learning how to pursue a project. How do I communicate with the client, connect with the client, so they will have trust in me and my team and will award us a project so we can start the technical project cycle all over again. And so around this, you'll see I'll find any way to get trust back into the cycle, because I really do think this is at the heart of leadership, of strong businesses, of creativity and innovation, that when we think of that trust triangle, the sound logic, the being authentic, the having empathy, that's where we can build trust, whether we're detailing a door, whether we are writing a contract, whether we are interviewing in front of a client to win a commission. Having that as a mindset is something that's going to help you be a leader in your own style, in your own way, throughout your career.
You should tell the story of your career, because it's very different from mine, certainly.
So I don't know that there's a traditional career path for marketers in architecture, but I know mine is a bit different from a lot of marketers in that my first job was working at MIT, and I was a project assistant on Stephen Hull's residence hall that he did there. And I was fresh out of school. I was running to the construction site, taking notes, getting coffee, putting signs up for public hearings coming up. And from there, I also supported the Frank Gehry's Data Center, sort of all the projects that were happening there at MIT. And when that capital campaign ramped down, a lot of the project architects that worked there started going to other practices and started opening their own practices or joining architecture firms. So some people called me because they knew I was an English major. I helped a lot with communication.
She can really write.
Communication, a lot of client and community engagement and helping with that. They said, can you help us? We need to just market and you know how to talk to clients because you know what clients need. And I think that was a light bulb because I had this empathy, because I had this understanding not only of what clients want, but what the headaches were when you're trying to get a building built. You know, when a client decides to spend millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on a building, there's a lot of stress from a lot of people. And so I think that perspective has always helped me shape the messaging that we give to our clients and help architects think of the client first, right? It's the client first and we're second, and that's what the mindset that we always have to be in, whether we're pitching a project, working on a project, closing out the project, working on a contract. It is, I think just that empathy has been the heart of it for me.
And we benefit tremendously from that perspective. And I will tell you in this cycle, obviously, when I had the opportunity right after my MArch 1 to go to Florence and teach there, I mean, in teaching, I learned so much. I have to be simple. I have to be to the point. I need to be relatable so people can absorb information. And in that experience, you know, I thought, you know, I am going to be a designer. And I actually went back to the States, started working at a firm. My title was designer. Moved to another firm, my title was designer. So I thought, this is my path. But then a position opened at Perkins & Will, and the position open was project architect. And to be a project architect, to call yourself architect, legally you have to be licensed. I had my license. I'm like, it's Perkins & Will. I'm gonna apply. I don't care what they call me. So I went in as a project architect and said to myself, you know, all these years I have been honing my skills as a designer. This is an opportunity by title, by role, to hone in the technical side. And as I was doing that through the years, I became more about client connections, being in interviews out front, really managing clients as the projects were progressing. And one day they said, you know, I think your role is project manager. I'm like, whatever, you can change it. I'm gonna do whatever I'm gonna do. For me, titles are not important. They have never defined me. I know it's different for every person, so I'm not passing judgment on that. But I always felt there was no ceiling and that I could do whatever. And I had many opportunities within the firm. So I will say this, that when you graduate, your diploma might say something, but you can do so many different things. And you should explore, and you should have latitude, and you should never be in a place where there is a perceived or real ceiling. And I think that's something that I have value. And it's, I mean, obviously we drank the Kool-Aid, we work at Perkins & Will, but I know of many other excellent firms that have that same philosophy as well. So we want to leave you with that, really. That's our closing. Just to say that this is really about discovering your inner leader, and it's a journey that each of us has to take in many different ways. If you sign up for tomorrow, we'll give you a preview of that. Carolyn will tell us what it's up for tomorrow, and we will be excited to hear your questions after this.
Yeah. So tomorrow, just a quick sneak peek, we will be focusing a lot sort of on communication as a tool to help build some leadership skills. And we'll be talking about our passion. We'll be practicing some ways to actually improve how we listen and communicate. And then we'll sort of practice doing some presentations using some different techniques that can help you in a variety of different ways, whether you're talking with your professor, trying to communicate something to one of your fellow students or convince your family of something. I am looking forward to getting to know those of you who will be there tomorrow.
And I will say it will not be this format. You have to be present and participate. So you will not get bored and you will not fall asleep because it's super active. So hope to see you there. Thank you.